Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Spinrad, for being here. Thank you, Assistant Secretary Medina. I want to talk about cleanliness in our oceans. None of us want trash in our oceans. None of us want plastic in our oceans. None of us want these things in our oceans either. And these were passed out for the committee hearing. It says more ocean, less plastic. Is this better in the ocean than this? Is there any compelling reason why that might be the case?
Assuming you're addressing the question to me,
yeah.
I would argue anything we're putting into the ocean that is manufactured is not good for the ocean.
I agree. If I throw this away right now, is there a good chance it'll end up in the ocean?
Yes.
Really? American trash is what's ending up in the ocean?
Globally.
Really? Okay, so there's pretty good studies on this that would say that in the Pacific Ocean trash, and plastic specifically, the vast majority of it, over 90%, comes from Asia, African countries. Is that not true?
I think the numbers do tend to show that sort of increase on the part of the Asian countries, but that doesn't mean that we're not contributing to part of that as well.
How much do we contribute?
I don't have the answer at the top of my head.
It's like less than 1%, isn't it?
I don't know.
It is. I mean, because walk me through that. So if I throw this in the trash can right now, how does that end up in the ocean and not in a landfill nearby?
I can't give you the whole chain of how it goes from your.
But you said there's a good chance. You said that with some authority that there's a good chance this ends up in the ocean. How is that true? I was a Navy SEAL in my prior career. I spent a lot of time in America's oceans. So how does this end up in the ocean so easily?
Well, again, I can't give you the whole chain of events associated with how our trash gets in the ocean, but I can tell you that the data are there. You can look at what is in the ocean. The data is there. America is responsible for an incredibly small percent of any plastic in the ocean. Doesn't mean that's okay either. Look, we all want to diminish any kind of plastic waste in the ocean. So maybe let's talk about advanced recycling. You know, in my district, actually, there's a company called Huntsman that does amazing advanced recycling if they're allowed to. There's also legislation in the Clean Futures Act that would practically prohibit any new recycling facilities that deal with plastics, any new production of plastic. You know, and I wonder, is that really is that a good thing to do? To reduce the source of plastic that would end up in the ocean? Does it end up? No, we already covered whether it ends up in the ocean. No, but I'm trying to understand. It really doesn't. No, advanced recycling. Because you might do one thing, right? And maybe it has good intentions. You want to have less plastic production in the United States, but it also has the second, third order consequence of reducing or making it impossible to engage in advanced recycling techniques. You know, what is the state of recycling in our country right now, considering we don't really export it to China the way we used to? I can't answer that. I'm not an expert on recycling technology. Ms. Medina, maybe she looked like she wanted to answer.
I can add just a little bit of light to this. The first thing is that we do still export a tremendous amount of our refuse, our waste. And it is true that only 5 or 6% of U.S. plastic is recycled today, and that's gone down in the last year. It's going in the wrong direction, which is why we're working so hard on a global agreement to combat plastic pollution everywhere, all over the world. And we need a global solution to this because it's not really different from climate. Plastic is everywhere. And if we can't stop having as much plastic in the system, we'll never get it out of the system. We need different materials, we need better recycling, and the agreement will take on the full life cycle of plastic. And we're standing shoulder to shoulder with the industry on this, not just the retailers, but also the makers of the very products that we're trying to figure out how to curb the pollution of. So I'm pretty optimistic. It's going to take a lot. We're going to need a lot of innovation. We're going to need more plants that do that recycling. We're going to need to create an economy where that recycled bottle has value. This one too. This one has more value, which is why it's a little less likely.
I want to ask one more question. Your answer makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate you acknowledging that it's clearly a global problem that you have to deal with other countries on, especially the countries that are putting the vast majority of waste into the ocean. The next question was, it was mentioned earlier that you think sea levels will rise in the Gulf by 2 feet by 2050. The obvious next question is there anything we can actually do to stop that? Because that question indicates what the solutions might be. If we stopped all carbon emissions globally right now, would that change that rise in sea level?
The answer to the last question is that if we went to net zero tomorrow, we would still have to deal with sea level rise, ocean acidification, all those factors. That's the flywheel effect, as we call it, and that we're seeing in climate change. It's going to happen.
Right, it's going to happen, and it makes preparing for it and the infrastructure necessary to deal with it all the more important. And if I had more time, I could go on a long tirade about cost and benefit and how we should spend that money. But I don't, and I'm out of time. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.